Hey, good day. How's everyone doing? This is Pastor Dave Barry with the Praise and Worship Family Outreach Center, and this is our podcast of Outstanding in Our Field. I always have to kind of take a moment and laugh about that because I still think it's hilarious, because I know the religious people just turn over in their pew graveyard and just get so frustrated when I say that, thinking that I'm talking about how outstanding I am, but I'm talking about being out in his field and making a difference in the world that we're communicating in, and not just staying inside the four walls, but getting out and standing in people's presence and actually talking to people. So we've been talking about the truth marches on, and I want to continue this because officially our conference has been scheduled for May the 29th, 30th, and 31st. And the theme of that conference is Truth Marches On. So I kind of want to build up just a little bit to this as conference begins. And so I was in Genesis chapter 12 last week, and I want to continue here because the story of Abram is a true, this is the covenant that we're under, an Abrahamic covenant that where the law has been fulfilled in Jesus Christ, and there is no more law that needs to be fulfilled. What his original contract, his original covenant that has been sealed from the foundation of the world continues on. That Old Testament covenant was won because of the hardness of their hearts and because they refused to listen, and therefore the judgment and the plagues of that covenant had come upon natural Israel in the first century, in 70 AD there, that just the way that Jesus had prophesied it. But I'm getting off track here, but I want to talk about Abram, who's left his homeland. He's found himself in a place, and when hardship begins to come, he turns towards another country, and that's where we pick this up in Genesis chapter 12, verse 10. And it says, there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down into Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was grievous in the land. Just a heads up for those who are studying the scriptures, if you ever see in the scripture that he went down, you see that he's going in the wrong direction, because God's direction is always up. Also, in a free comment, I'll also tell you that if they travel west, they're traveling away from God instead of towards God. God is always referred to in the east, and the west is as far as from him as you can get. So these are just symbolic. It's not literal that if you live in the west of the United States, for example, you're not farthest away from God, although sometimes somebody may wonder that. But right now I'm specifically speaking of symbolically. And so as a famine comes on the land, Abraham went down to try to get some sustenance in Egypt, and the famine just grew worse. And as they traveled, Abram and Sarah traveled, it says in verse 11, it came to pass when he was come near to enter into Egypt, that he said unto Sarah his wife, Behold now, I know that thou art a fair woman to look upon. Therefore it shall come to pass, when the Egyptians shall see thee, that they shall say, This is his wife, and they will kill me, but they will save thee alive. Say, I pray thee, that thou art my sister, that it may be well with me for thy sake, and my soul shall live because of thee. Now, basically, Abram has asked his wife, Sarah, to lie and say, you are my sister instead of my wife, therefore the Egyptians won't kill him to take her to be a wife. Now, a couple things I want to point out here is sometimes we think it's okay to tell a lie. Sometimes we think it's okay to tell what we call a white lie or a half-truth, we call them, and all these things. Well, this was one of those situations where it's considered a half-truth because technically Sarah was his sister, his half-sister, because they had the same dad but different mothers. And so back in this day, he was asking her to claim to be his sister, which was a complete lie. So sometimes we can justify ourselves by telling these half-truths But as our theme we talked about, the truth marches on, and you'll see that he gets in a lot of trouble for this. But I want you to point out here that Sarah was 65 years old approximately at this time. So it's pretty amazing that not only did Abraham think his wife was beautiful, apparently all the men of the nation of Egypt thought she was beautiful too, because they pointed out and are attracted to her. So it's amazing that age has very little to do with this. In fact, she doesn't have her first child until she's like 90 years old. So you see that God's preservation power is extreme, and so the fact that he had to even come up with this story is pretty amazing in itself, that she was considered at 65 to be such a beautiful woman that all the men would be drawn to her. You can see it to some degree, some men or certain age groups or whatever, but this is pretty amazing. But this half-truth is what got him in trouble, and wasn't a complete lie. It was just, a half-truth or a white lie, or all the things we use to justify our actions. But I'm telling you, the truth always stands. If you don't have a complete truth, then it's subject to fall at any given moment. It's subject to pay consequences here. And so those who have gone through circumstances and situations, it's always best to tell the truth, because the truth will always stand. You don't have to remember what lie you told or who you told it to. You don't have to remember all the different stories and different directions. But these are principles that, if you aren't careful, will come with you into the church and come with you into your relationship with God, because you think, well, it's not a complete lie. It's not it's just a half-truth, a little white lie. All the things we use to justify, and we don't want to get into that situation. We want to be pure and holy before the Lord in our communications and in our actions. And so even though Abram was chosen by God and working for God and doing all this thing, you still see he had areas to be worked out, situations that need to be helped, and situations that needed to be worked on. So I want us to think on this week, that we tell the truth. Sometimes we have to face additional consequences when we tell the truth, but God in his infinite wisdom will bring you through them if you stand faithful to his word and faithful to what he has told us to do. So although the story wasn't a complete lie, it was still a lie, and the consequences we'll probably deal with a little bit more next week. But I want you to see that this is our choice. This is our decision, that we have to take a stand for what's right and let the truth march on. And if the truth keeps on going and we don't keep going with the truth, then we're going in a different direction than truth does. So God bless you until next week.